Hi everyone, this is Anna from Anaya Science Switch, and I'm going to present to you today tongue reading from the Chinese medicine perspective. And the reason we do tongue reading is so we can see in the tongue the internal landscape of the body. We can see the internal organs and also the state of the moisture of the body. So it's really awesome diagnostic tool that you can learn for yourself. So when you get up in the morning, you can look at your tongue and then you can start interpreting how your internal organs are functioning, and then you can choose diet and lifestyle remedies for helping your body come back to homeostasis. So let's get into it. So yeah, I created this in 2020. Presented it to a few people, and that's my website down there. Check out some information on that. So what is the purpose of tongue reading? So it's an insight into the current health state of the body, and it's used as a diagnostic tool in Chinese medicine. And we have different methods of inspecting the body in Chinese medicine. One is looking, observation, smelling, touching, like palpating, and listening. And because the tongue changes very quickly, it's a great indicator of the internal organ landscape. And from inspecting the tongue, we can sense and then interpret how the body temperature is, the body fluids, the organ information, and we can also see the toxin accumulations and where they are accumulating on the tongue relates to different parts of the internal organ system. The tongue is essentially a microsystem of the entire body. So that's what we're going to look at here. So here's your tongue. I've got it mirrored here because obviously when you stick out your own tongue, it's going to be that way up. And you can see here is a body with all of the internal organs. And so comparatively, we are looking at the placement of the organs. And I flip this upside down also because what you'll notice is that it's this way up. So, for example, the lungs are up here. Behind that's the heart. And then you've got the liver, which has been mirrored in this shot. Underneath that, you've got that's the diaphragm. Then you've got the liver underneath, you've got the stomach down there, the spleen's off to the side, and then the stomach is joining on here to the top of the small intestine, going around and around and around that squiggly one, and then the end of the small intestine joins into the beginning of the large intestine, and then that is flowing out of the body as the stool, as a waste product. And then also behind the liver under there, that's where the gallbladder lives. So just to go over that again, lungs, heart, separated by the diaphragm, liver's there, gallbladder's behind, there's the stomach, spleen's off to the side, the pancreas actually lies over the top as an endocrine organ, and then the stomach is joining onto the small intestine, and the small intestine is joining into the large intestine and going out through the colon and rectum. Obviously, we've got bladder, reproductive organs, and behind all of this, we've got the kidneys. And so all of that coming up the esophagus, and you've got the tongue up there. So when you stick out your tongue, you've got the lungs here and here, then you've got the heart, and then sort of slightly off to the side, but mostly in the middle is the stomach, joining onto the small intestine, joining onto the large intestine, going out there. And then you've got the liver off to one side, the spleen off to one side, and then the kidneys mirrored there. And then this is the area, obviously, where the reproductive organs are living. So when you stick out your tongue, you can see in the mirror that you've got all of these organ placement zones. So that's the first thing to know. And so what does the tongue do? That's, in Chinese medicine, all of the internal organs are connected to different body parts. And so the tongue is actually the expression of the heart, because the heart is where we can sort of output our emotions, our thoughts, our ideas, our ways of talking, kissing, singing, tasting, eating. It's all done through the tongue, which is connecting into the heart energy. And the heart energy has a consciousness, and that's called Shin. And the Shin is essentially the spirit. It's where your spirit lives, is inside of your heart. So when you're using your tongue to talk, it's an expression of your spirit in communication. And so also the heart, in Chinese medicine, the organs are paired up in a double system. So the heart and the small intestine go together, and you could say that the intestines is, they call it the second brain, but the intestines is where you feel other people or events through. You actually can feel it through your intestines, and that's known as the gut feeling. And then that small intestine is actually linked with the heart and the expression of the spirit. So also the tongue obviously is tasting food, as food is our medicine. And on the tongue here, you'll notice that there's the 6 flavors, and this is apparently where the tongue recognizes the different flavors. It's where it tastes and then activates. So those flavors, if you include them all in your food, you're activating all of the parts of your tongue which prepares the amylase, and that's the pre-digestive effect that happens before you swallow your food. So yes, producing enzymes for digestion and therefore nutrients for your life energy. So the tongue, it is a muscle, you can see here, and it's healing very, very quickly. Like you'll notice if you bite your tongue, it's healed quite fast. So because the tongue changes very quickly, it's really awesome for diagnostic purposes, because immediately whatever change happens in the body, it will start expressing itself in the tongue. So as we just talked, the tongue is related to the heart. So you could also see it in the shape of the tongue, because it is this indented midline. It's kind of expressing itself as a fractal version of the heart. Here's a real heart. Yeah. And the heart there looks like the tongue. Very interesting. So what does a normal tongue look like? I've included this red rose because you'll notice that when you touch a rose, it's very soft, and it's got a bit of sponginess to it and a bit of moisture when it's a healthy rose before it's dropping off and dying. It's got this kind of abundant life quality to it, and it's full of color. So here's a cute little baby with a cute little baby tongue, and obviously because the baby is new, it hasn't had the opportunity to cause itself health problems as an adult. So when we look at a child's tongue or a baby's tongue, we can see that that's as close to original normal as we can get. And so we're always striving to get to this kind of nice looking tongue. You can see it's pink, but it's not too pink, it's not too pale, it's got moisture, it doesn't have any cracks or lines, it's got the normal midline, but it's not too indented. So when we're looking at tongues, we want it hydrated with abundant life force, good blood supply, because all muscles need blood supply, it should be proportional and symmetrical. So when you stick out the tongue, it shouldn't be off to the side or kind of hunched up or going in funny directions. So when we're diagnosing, we've got these things that we want to inspect. So we want to inspect the body color. Normal should be like a rose pink, not like the red rose, more like this pink here. We want to inspect the coating. So the coating is the layer of moisture that's sitting on top. So we want some moisture, but not too wet, not too dry. The shape, because it's a muscle, it should be a little bit full, like a strong muscle, not a thin, indented, weak, atrophied muscle. It has to have a bit of oomph, strength in the muscle. And the size, it should be proportional to the body, the human's body. So sometimes when people stick their tongue out, I ask them to stick their tongue out and they go, eh. But it should be, So then you want to look at, like, for me, I've got quite a long tongue because I've got quite long limbs. So a bigger person might have a bigger tongue. And also on that, culture-wise, people with different skin tones will present with slightly different tongue colors. Like Indian people's tongues are actually quite a few shades darker, which is their normal. So you want to take that into account as well, looking at all of the colors. And then we've got this fur or texture. So you'll notice that on your tongue, you've got this kind of furry quality to it. And the moisture kind of sits on the top of that. And the texture of that should be kind of smooth, shouldn't be all sticking up and looking dry or like that. So for the diagnostic purposes of tongue reading, we have to understand what is yin and yang. So you can see here this Taiji symbol. This is representing the yin and yang. So here, this is yang, which is fire. Symbol's actually upside down because the yang is always going to the top, because the yang represents the sunshine, heaven above, light, and the yin, which is meant to be facing downways, is representing moisture, coolness, earth, round, all things below. So we'll get into more details on that. So this is the Taiji Yin-Yang going around and around, and it's transforming from one side to the other side. So you notice with the symbol, it's got the yang side, which is always white, light, and the yin side, which is dark, which is night. And then it's got a piece of yang inside the yin, and then it's got a piece of yin inside the yang. And what that means, as we can see in this moving diagram, is that this symbol should be interpreted as something that is in motion and that is constantly changing state and transforming from one state to another. So you'll notice that in nature, here we've got the moon cycling around. So there's phases of the night, and then when the night phase ends, there will be daytime, and then we have the sun doing its phase, and then the sun sets, and then it goes back into the night. So that's one observation of yin turning to yang, turning to yin, turning to yang. So it's a concept that can be applied to anything, absolutely anything. So my teacher, when I first started training all of this, we give the example, is the hand yin or yang? So that's going to depend on the context that you put the hand into. So in the context of relative space, my hand has a top surface and a bottom surface. So you could say that the bottom surface is the yin because it's below, and the top surface is yang because it's in the above side. But then when I compare my hand to the ceiling, my hand has now become yin and the ceiling has become yang. So you could say my hand is yin in comparison with the ceiling. And then if I compare my hand to the floor, it's now transformed into yang because it's now above the floor. So anything in nature or observation, you have to be able to essentially juxtapose it with something else in order to define how to categorize it. Because holistic medicine is looking at the entire picture and getting clues from all these different observations and then tying all of those clues together like a puzzle. And that's why it's a bit of an art. So in Daoism, which is the ancient philosophy that Chinese medicine takes its nature concepts from, observations of nature, in Daoism, cycles of nature were observed as external forces, and then they related those observations to the human landscape as the internal forces. So everything that we observe in nature is actually also observable in the human body. For example, you see the ocean of water, and then the sun is coming and shining on that water, and then the sun is warming the water, and then the water begins to evaporate. And as it evaporates from the heat and the steam, turning into steam, as it gets higher and higher, it starts cooling down, and then it trickles back down as rain and returns to the ocean below. So there's a transformational cycle that is affected by the yang sun affecting the yin water. So microcosm and macrocosm are fractally reflecting on each other. So we could consider the microcosm as the human in comparison with the macrocosm, which is the universe. And then in terms of tongue reading, we can consider the human as the macrocosm and the tongue as the microcosm because it's showing the internal landscape. And we have also ear reading, which does the same kind of thing. So as above, so below, as within, so without. That's talking about that macro-micro reflecting fractal observation. So this is a fractal. So you can see that there's the hole, the black shape, and then as you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, it's actually holographically reproducing itself. So that's what we're doing with Chinese medicine, is we're looking for patterns, and then once we inspect the pattern, it extrapolates out and it tells us about the whole. So back to Yin Yang. Here's another nature-based interpretation of the Taiji. So Yin and Yang is all about relationship, as I've just described with the macro-micro, the contextual situation. And you can see here, this is another kind of representation of Yin and Yang because it's showing this kind of interplay of movements, and there's 4 different movements that Yin and Yang has been observed to perform. Just like you've got 4 directions, north, south, east and west, and then around those 4 directions you've got the seasons going around, summer, autumn, winter, spring, going back to summer. This is a repeating cycle of yin winter transforming into yang summer through the seasons. So we've got these 4 phases of yin and yang, of these principles. One of the principles of yin and yang is opposites, duality. So opposite is black, white, up, down, in, out, sun, moon, dry, wet, all of that kind of stuff. Interdependence, nothing in the universe is totally yin and nothing is totally yang. So that's why it has the dot inside, because it's showing that eventually that seed dot will transform into its respective opposite. one cannot exist without the other. There is no day without the night. So if we only had daytime, it would be yang all the time. So when we have nighttime, that's actually balancing. Mutually consuming, there is normally a harmonious balance of yin and yang. However, they weaken or consume one another when they fall out of balance. We'll get into that later, but it's basically talking about levels. So here's yin and yang levels. They should be relatively even as they're transforming around, but if they go too out of balance, this one is far more than this one, or the other way, that's far more than this one, and that's going to create a disharmonious situation. And then we've got intertransformative. The transformation is not random. It occurs at the right exact moment under the right conditions. For example, a rock cannot grow into an egg. So just as I talked about the seasons going around, that is a conditions that are affecting all of the transformations that happen in those cycles of seasons. So in springtime, the wind blows the pollen, and then that goes around and starts spreading the pollen to seed new plants. And then when the sun comes at full spectrum in the summer, that's providing warmth and light and energy to grow everything. And then the autumn time comes, it gets darker, colder, wetter, and then everything starts dying off, returns to the ground, everything returns to the earth in winter, hibernates, and then we go back to spring and the whole cycle starts again. That's intertransformative. So yin and yang have qualities that we observe, and you can also inside the body observe yin and yang as like a fire and water balance, because our bodies are made of water molecules and we're warm. We're a warm water system at like 36.7 degrees Celsius. So if we get too hot, like a fever, we're going to go out of balance. If we get too cold, the water can't move properly. So yang has these qualities, and when you I always like to refer everything back to electrical energy. So yang could be considered a positive electrical charge, and yin a negative electrical charge, or more of a magnetic, drawing things to it. So qualities of yang: it's hot. What's hot in nature? Fire. What color is fire? Red. How does it move? It moves fast. So here in this image you can see a fast forest fire just going and moving really quickly, catching everything. So that's relating to activity. Yang is, the forces of yang are responsible for activity and motion, and it has this masculine quality because it's like a charge, masculine energy charge. So hot, warm, alert, focus, energetic, above because the sun is above if we're comparing it to the below. Sunshine, daytime, light, motion. So anything in nature, you can either categorize it as a yang type of force or a yin type of force. So the qualities of yin is opposite of the yang. So it's wet, fluid, blue or black in color. It's cooling, it's calming, it's feminine, quiet, slow, below, moon, the night. The interior, it's static, which means it's not moving fast. It's heavier, denser. Denser means more compacted. And it provides the structure for the body. So in terms of the human body, you could consider the structures inside of us, like the organs, the bones, everything like that, as yin because it's more densified tissues. And then the yang energy is the energy that makes everything do its processes, internal organ functions, processes, digestion, peristalsis, sweating, like all of this kind of movement. So there's a second division of yin and yang in terms of human biology. We call it qi and blood. So it's similar to yin and yang in terms of it being complementary opposites, but it just doesn't have a temperature quality. So when we're assessing the person, we're always looking, is it qi problem, a blood problem, or has it developed into a yin problem or a yang problem? So the qi and blood is actually more issues that are more easily remediable. They haven't been occurring for a long time. And then if those issues aren't corrected, they will eventually develop into a more chronic illness, which then will start involving body temperature changes, transforming into a yin or a yang illness. So what is qi? It is related to yang, which is involved with the activity and movement. So it's the activity and the movement just without the heat part. And so qi is what we can call our life force, our energy, our prana. It could be our electricity, because we're electrical beings running electricity through a water system. And it's our awakeness, our alertness, our movement. It's all of those things like yang, except it's just not hot or red. It's got no temperature, therefore it's got no color, and we can't see it. Can't really see qi, but you know qi is present because something is alive. There's a life force moving through it. Therefore, the person or the thing that is alive has qi present. And if your qi goes down, you're going to get things like tiredness, essentially. And so blood is the complementary opposite, and it's related to the yin. So what is blood? It's wet, and it moistens things, and it's red. So this one does have a color, but it just doesn't have a temperature. So it's related to yin because of the moisture aspect, and blood is also made of water, so that's a yin aspect. So what is blood for? It's for hydration, it's for nutrient delivery through our venous system, and it's also giving the body and the muscles coloring, because blood is red from the iron. So if we have an abundant blood supply, we're going to have fresh, rosy complexion, a nice pink, moist tongue, and everything in our body, all our joints, everything like that will be lubricated, so we don't get cricky joints. And qi and blood need to move. So like everything, like that Taiji Yin-Yang symbol, always transforming and moving, that's what our body is doing all of the time, because we're made of water, we're made of electricity, we're at a certain temperature. If that system stops moving, then we get stagnation of flow. Nothing gets an electrical supply, our organs don't get nutrients, we don't get blood flow, so we need to have this qi and blood at a correct movement. So here we go again, yin and yang, and then qi and blood. So yin and yang could be more relating to a chronic stage of an imbalance, and qi and blood is more like the acute stage. So if you can correct it at this level, you're never going to get to that level. So yeah, qi is the life force, the prana, the electricity, it doesn't have a temperature. Blood moistens and gives color to the body and the muscles, and it has no temperature. Although in our complete system, we do have a temperature. You can see the relationship. Your perspective always has to zoom in and zoom out with Chinese medicine. So yang is the fire aspect. It warms and moves the body. Yin is the water aspect. It cools and moistens the body. So imbalance. So changes in the levels of yin, yang, qi, and blood. We're going to have a look at that. So you can see that this rose that was born red has now started dying off, because that's part of life. That's a cycle of life. We have a body that ages, and then certain transformations from yin to yang will happen over a lifetime period. But Chinese medicine is designed to promote longevity, so staying healthy and abundant with life force as long as we can. So what is depleting our qi, blood, yin, yang? Mental stress, sedentary lifestyle, environmental toxins, natural aging, which I just described, dietary insufficiencies, imbalanced microbiome, many things. So too much or too little of different things will throw the system out of balance. So too much thinking gives you mental stress. That will actually impact your physical body. Not enough exercise, not moving your system will actually give you too much time to think, causing you mental stress, depleting your physical body. Environmental toxins will block up your ability to absorb nutrients and therefore imbalance your gut. So natural aging, well, really a disease. So this is how we look at measuring things. So, I mean, this is about tongue reading, but it's also, this is relating to the entire body, the way we read the clues of the body. So we've got this tool. This is a tool here, this box. It's called 8 Principles. And we've got opposites. So we've got yin, yang, deficiency, excess, cold, hot, internal, external. So when we see a person, we want to question, is the problem a yin problem or a yang problem? Is the problem deficiency, which means there's not enough of something? Or is the problem excess, meaning there's too much of something? Is the problem because there's some cold present? Is the problem because there's heat present? Is the problem an internal problem, so it's more like organ related? Or is it an external problem, meaning that it's like the limbs, the skin, the peripheral meridians, not the internal organs? And so here I've got a chart, yin and yang. So yin's blue, water's blue, yang's red, fire's red. Here's equilibrium. So you can see that this chart, not one is below or above the equilibrium line, and that's called homeostasis. So those yin and yangs always want to be relatively close to each other. So is it a yin or yang condition? Is it an excess or deficiency state? Okay, I've done that. So qi, too much versus not enough. So can't really have too much qi, but qi can stagnate. It can stop moving, and that will create a bit of a blockage in the body. So because qi likes to move, so we don't call it qi in excess, we call it a qi stagnation. It's blocked the flow of movement for some reason. The reason could be there's a problem in the meridian because you broke your arm, or you're thinking some thoughts which cause an electromagnetic disturbance in your field, which means that you just can't move the rest of your body because all the organs rely on the emotions being balanced as well. So if the qi can't move, there's a stagnation energy, and that person might be emotional, tired, and they look pale. So in terms of the tongue might be pale or slightly purple, because if the qi is not moving, the blood's not flowing, and then there might be some kind of old blood trapped. And they're saying also with a red tip. So as we remember, the tip is also up here. We have to flip the tongue. The tip of the tongue is related to the upper chest region. And so if there's stagnation in the organs below, that's not circulating the body energy, and it can block up the hot and cold balance. And then as heat naturally rises in nature, the heat will rise up and start disturbing the upper body. So you'll get some kind of disturbance there. So Qi deficiency, Qi qualities are too low. So when the Qi goes down, tired, emotional, body aches, and the tongue will be pale. So it's not red rosy anymore, it's pale, and it's a little bit shaky because they don't have enough strength to hold the tongue muscle with a strong muscular contraction. They're just feeling tired. So now we're into blood, too much versus not enough. Same thing with Qi. We don't have blood excess because you can't have too much blood. It's more prone to stagnation again. So blood likes to move, and if it can't move, it will start blocking up the flow of blood, and then we don't get full circulation, we don't get nutrient delivery to the organs, we don't get the moistening aspect of the blood, all of that kind of stuff. So you can see here in this cupping, they've got really awesome blood stagnation bruises. So the purpose of cupping is to draw up through the pores the stagnant blood, so that's the blood that's not moving and it's maybe become old and it's drying out. And so you put the cup on and it draws up the old blood to the surface and releases it through the pores. And then what comes back to refill that space is a fresh blood supply. So that's why cupping is really good for circulation, which then has the effect of pain relief. So the symptoms of blood stagnation is sharp pains in specific areas of the body. And Qi stagnation, the pain that the person feels is more kind of like, it's just all over the place. I just feel achy. I can't really put my finger on it. But in blood stagnation, you'll get a sharp stabbing pain in a certain place, and that's because you could consider that like almost like an internal bruise, and there's something that needs to be shifted. And so the tongue might look a little bit purple. That's that old blood not moving, it's not circulating or rehydrating itself with a fresh blood supply. So blood deficiency, the blood qualities are too low. This is quite common in women because women have periods. We lose blood, and if we don't replenish the blood supply, it is going to have an effect on all of our internal organ system, meridian system, because we need blood so everywhere. So when you get a blood deficiency, your symptoms are going to be tiredness, emotional problems, paleness, because blood is red, it colors the muscle. So when there's a lack of blood, the person will look pale. You can see that here in this, when you pull down the eye, you can see if it's pale looking, it could be redder. And then dryness. So dry skin, dry hair, dry eyes, dry tongue, dehydrated, all of that because blood is moist and blood moistens us. We've got a lack of blood. We are feeling dry. You feel dizzy because you're not having enough circulation. And the tongue is going to look pale, shaky, like the Qi depletion. But one difference, so the Qi depletion tongue is pale and shaky, but it's still got a bit of moisture there. The blood deficiency is going to be pale, shaky, but it's going to be dry because the blood is the moisture in the body. That's how you can sort of differentiate. Is it Qi or blood? Qi is pale, tired. Blood is pale and tired, but with a dryness aspect. So now we're into the yin and yang. So this is the yin. So too much versus not enough. We don't generally go into yin excess. It's it's actually called something else. But anyway, you can see in this chart, we've got yin excess on this side, and then we've got yin depletion. So if it goes above the equilibrium line, this water level has become too high, it doesn't mean that the yang needs to be balanced. It means that this level needs to be brought back down. So too much water is edema in the body, feeling cold, because yin has the aspect of cold. The qualities will be slow. You'll feel slow, lethargic, heavy, dull, because all of this excess is it's slowing you down. And so the tongue will look swollen because it's got extra fluid happening, and the coat will be thick and white because it's cold. It's not red. So this yin excess, we don't generally call it yin excess. It's more prone to be called dampness in the body. So all of these qualities, you could also relate them to dampness, which is kind of like sluggish water with sticks and leaves and dirt and not clear water. So yin deficiency. So in this chart on this side, the yin level, the water level, has gone down. It doesn't mean that this fire yang level has gone up. It means the water's too low. And so to balance this, we would actually want to encourage yin to be produced in the body. So the symptoms of not having enough yin, you're going to be dry because the moisture is going down. And you're going to feel fast and hot, but tired. So this is a case of depletion. So in cases of depletion, you're always going to be tired. In the case of depletion of moisture, there's going to be dryness. But in this space here, this relative space where the yang is actually more than the yin, you're going to be tired and dry, but now there's a presence of heat. Not because there's too much heat, because there's not enough moisture to balance the heat. So in that case, you'll be feeling the yang effects, which are fast and hot, but you'll be tired and dry. So it's not a case of too much fire qualities. It's the water needs to be brought up to balance that equilibrium. And in the tongue, the body of the tongue, the actual muscle, it will be red and it will be thin. It's a depletion. It's losing its strength. So the actual thickness of the tongue, it might be a little bit thin or hollow. And it will be dry, so it's going to be red and dry, possibly cracked, because when you dry out the earth with too much sun, it will crack the earth, and it's also because it's a lack of moisture. So yang qi, too much versus not enough. Yes, you can have too much yang qi. So we've got this diagram again. So here's equilibrium, here's too much yang qi. So it's gone above the equilibrium line and you've got too much fire happening in the body. So too much fire, despite the yin being normal, so you're going to get redness, fastness, heat. The person will have too much energy. They'll be talking loud, they'll be really, really fast and bowling around like with heaps and heaps of kind of bull in a china shop type energy. And that's that could be like, you know, when someone's had lots of alcohol and they're just like, wah, going crazy, and you can see the heat rising up in their face because all the heat naturally rises in nature and it's all going to get stuck up in the face, and then that's going to disturb the mind and it's going to make them really frenzied. So that's what kind of happens. And that obviously can, you know, I use the example of alcohol, can be things in the diet like chili or coffee, or maybe they work in a hot environment. And the tongue in this case is going to be red, and there might be a yellow coat, because as the fluids get cooked, they're going to start transforming their color from like clear into yellow. That's anything yellow in the body is what we consider to be like a cooked fluid. And then when the yang goes too low, so here the red, the fire's gone down. Fire's gone down. So we're in a depletion condition. So that means there's going to be tiredness, because your level has gone below the equilibrium. So you're going to feel tired and feel cold. And why feeling cold? Because here's yin, and comparing the yin to the lack of yang, what is the nature of yin? It's watery and it's cold. So this person, when their fire goes out, cold will be more prevalent. So they're going to feel tired and cold. And also there might be some wetness, like a bit of edema or clamminess, or there's like too much water in the body. Well, it's not because there's too much water, it's because there's not enough fire to balance the water. And one aspect of yang is that it warms the water. So the tongue is going to look pale because it's a deficiency fired condition, and the coating might be quite wet, like not moist, but actually wet. And that's because there's the presence of the yin, and the fire energy is not able to balance that. So in Chinese medicine, we have these climatic factors, and they can be observed in nature externally, and they can also be observed in the body internally. So to understand the external climatic factor is really easy to do, because we can observe it with our eyes, and then you can actually literally transpose that into internal body conditions, and then you can start really imagining if my body's dry, like it's dry in the winter, and the autumn going into winter, then how would that environment look inside my body? Or the sun's really, really hot and it's actually scorching all of the leaves and making them dry out. How would that look inside my body, right? So we call them the 6 evils. And in Bali, I know a term called masuk angin, which means the evil wind. And we literally call the wind evil wind attacking the body. And that's how you can get colds and stuff. So these 6 evils, they're external climatic forces that invade our bodies, affecting our health. So it's coming from the outside, and it's gotten through your immune system, and now it's on the inside of you. Damn. So the 6 climatic evils are wind, cold, heat. Summer heat means almost like a tropical climate, which it can be like super hot one minute and then super cold the next. Lightning storm, and then followed by a hot sun. Dampness and dryness. So under normal conditions, these climatic factors do not cause diseases, and are known as natures of 6 types of qi. They are natural manifestations of the different seasons and nature's constantly varying climate. So this does happen in nature, as we described. The cycles of the seasons are going around, and those seasonal climates will produce dampness and dryness and hotness and coldness. It's normal, but if they get out of balance, they can become pathological, and especially if we get them out of balance inside our human body system. So the elements here: wood, metal, earth, fire, heat. That's an adjunct of the fire element, summer heat, and then water. So that's the 5 elements plus this extra 6th one, accommodate the climatic factors. So then wood relates to the springtime, And what happens in the springtime in nature is that there's a prevalence of wind. And so when there's a prevalence of wind inside the human body, you're going to get symptoms. And what are the symptoms? There's going to be movement, because what does wind do? It blows things, it makes them move, like a flag blowing in the breeze. Tremors, because that's another form of movement. Or paralysis or stiffness. Now, how does that work? The flag is blowing in the wind, and then the wind gets so strong, the flag actually stands still for a moment. And that's what happens in this case of paralysis or stiffness. Can be caused by wind attacking your body. So if you're always standing in the wind, or if you're always under the aircon, that can actually cause this paralysis stiffness, which is seen quite a lot in things like Bell's palsy, or like facial paralysis. They say that old wives' tale, like, you know, don't make that expression in the wind too long or your face will stay like that. Kind of relating to that concept. The wind will change and you'll look like forever, because it actually literally is a cause of facial paralysis. So metal is the element related to the season of autumn, which has a climatic condition of dryness. So inside the body, dryness, as we've learned, is a lack of moisture and dehydration. So that will be dryness. Lack of moisture in the skin, lack of a blood supply. You're going to get dry skin, dry hair, dry eyes, dry. And that, in terms of what we're discussing on this page, that dryness can happen more commonly in autumn time because your external environment is obviously bigger than your internal environment, and if you're not protecting yourself, looking after yourself, the external environment can cause your body to change. Speaking of dryness. So the element of earth relates to the season we're calling late summer. So that climatic condition is damp. So that's essentially where it starts getting towards winter. And the climatic condition of dampness, you can think of it like kind of like humidity. And there's an excess of fluids that have accumulated, and it's building up toxins in the body. So dampness is kind of like fluid that's got stuff in it. You could think of dampness really relating to the lymphatic system in the body. The lymphatic system is our drainage system. We've got lymphatic nodes here under the arms, and the groin, and in the ankles, and all over the body, but those are the main sites. So, you know, if you catch a cold or some kind of, you know, pathogen from someone else, often you'll get swollen lymph nodes, right, in your neck, because your body is trying to discharge the waste, the toxins, dump them into the lymphatic system, and then the lymphatic system has to process all of the toxins and send them to the liver and the kidneys to begin the detoxing process. So if that system is too blocked up, it's a slow-moving water system, the lymphatic system, that gets too blocked up with too many toxins, it can start building up accumulations, and then you've got a lack of circulation. So if you're constantly in a damp environment, you can be more prone to have a fluid accumulation, or if you're eating a lot of damp natured foods, that can cause your digestive system to not be able to process everything properly, and then you'll get undigested food. Toxins will be produced, then they'll block up the lymphatic system, and then everything starts slowing down as your body is trying to ditch the toxins. And so the element of fire is relating to the summertime, obviously, and summertime is hot, and too much heat will dry out our fluids, and you know, the excess yang condition can be more prevalent in summertime because the external environment is causing too much heat. So if you're not balancing that, you can get this excess yang happening. Summer heat is that tropical season going on, and that can get even hotter. So summer heat is talking about extreme heat, which is seen as a fever in the body, and a fever can kill you. So that's when yang has gone really off this scale. So water relates to the winter time, and the climatic condition is cold. And so what does cold do in the body? It slows us down. Cold makes us contract our body, which is going to block up circulative flow. Withdrawn, you're going inwards because you're trying to protect your internal organs from the external cold. And you're just, all over. A cold environment is going to depress the circulative flow of qi and blood and emotions and digestion and all of that sort of thing. So in terms of digestion, if you're always eating cold food, because your stomach is a fire with stomach acid at a certain temperature, and if you keep putting cold water on a hot fire, the fire will diminish and then it will become a small fire, and then you can't digest very many things anymore. But often too much cold food from, I guess you could say it's the external environment coming in through your mouth, going into your stomach, that can cause a cold climate inside your body from what you eat. So that's talking about this. So in Ayurveda, they call the digestive fire, or one of the fires, Agni means fire, the digestive Agni has to be a hot fire. So here we've got a little bucket of soup, we've got a hot fire, and it's cooking. Because what do we do with our stomach? We cook food in there. You can't cook food in a cold oven, my mentor would say. So we need yang qi. We need the fire energy because it's warming energy and it helps us cook and digest the food, which is our digestive fire from Ayurveda. So an imbalance of yin, yang, qi and blood can lead to a lack of digestive fire, resulting in undigested foods. Undigested foods accumulate, become toxic inside the body as unprocessed materials. And we can see that on the tongue. And in Ayurvedic medicine, those toxins that present on the tongue is called ama, which means toxins. And you can especially see this in the morning. So if you wake up in the morning and you go with your tongue, you're going to see all of this. Sometimes not, hopefully not. You can see the toxins that have accumulated while you've been sleeping, because when you're sleeping, you're essentially detoxing your body. Everything's correcting while you're sleeping, and all of those toxins actually get put on the tongue. And you can see then, okay, here's my lungs and my heart, here's my stomach, here's my intestines, here's my lower intestines, my kidneys, here's my liver, my spleen. So you can see where is the toxins, where are the patches, and that will lead you on an investigation into your internal organ landscape, because you might have the toxins all up in the lung section, and you'll be like, oh, what have I been breathing? Have I been breathing toxins? So you are what you eat, so don't be too fast, cheap, easy, or fake. So now we're going to get into the tongue analysis, because we've done all of the background stuff with the yin and yang. I will do some more videos on yin and yang because I've just kind of skimmed over it. It takes quite a while to get your head around, but going by example will help crystallize the information. So here's a tongue that looks pretty good. You can see it's got pinkness, got moisture. You can see the tongue fur. It's not too fuzzy, but there is this kind of indented quality. So instead of it being a fat muscle, strong muscle, it's gone a bit concave. So that's suggesting that this has got some depletion aspect to it. But the color looks good, the moisture looks good. So it could just be the beginning. No, it wouldn't be the beginning of a qi depletion because it's the tongue body. it might be something more long-term, because the body will change more slowly than the coating. But that's getting a bit more complicated. So the tongue, the body color. So we always have to, when we're putting out, imagine that you're putting out your tongue in the morning, you've scraped off the armor with your copper tongue scraper, and now you're looking at your tongue. So what you have to do it by a process. What are you going to look at first? You're going to first look at the body color. So here's some Pantone color chart. Here's getting on the pale side. Here is, yeah, that would be more of like a stagnation. Here's heat. Here's blood stagnation. Here's really, probably compare that to the blue, which is excess cold, which can be due to yang deficiency, which is actually getting into potential not being alive. So we've got the red tongue. Is your tongue red? This might suggest that you've got heat in your body. It will suggest that you've got heat in your body. Is the heat excess heat, or is it deficiency heat? So you'll have to go back through the slides to remember when the yin. So here's the yin and the yang, the red and the blue. Here's the equilibrium line. If the yin goes down, you've got heat present, but it's not because there's too much heat. It's because the water, the moisture, the coolness cannot balance it. So you've got a presence of heat. But then if you've got excess heat, it's gone above the equilibrium. So that's a difference that you're going to have to differentiate in terms of looking at the whole picture. So the excess heat tongue, it's going to be the whole tongue is red. Excess, so it's everywhere. It's big. Excess is big. Deficiency tongue that is red, it might be like that hollow tongue from just before, like it's got a weakness aspect to it, and it will be red, but there's also going to be some dryness, and it might have little red dots. So crimson tongue, fire or body fluid exhaustion. Purple tongue, blood stasis. It's kind of like a bruise, blood stagnation. Excess cold. I mean, if you lose your body temperature to the point of excess, you will die, because we're meant to be 36.7 degrees Celsius. Pale tongue is qi, blood, or yang deficiency. So this is a starting point. So when you see a pale tongue, you've got 3 options to now start considering breaking down as we look through more of the information, because we're information gathering. Sorry, it's going to get gross from now on. Tongue coating. So now that first you've inspected the body color, is it pale? Is it red? Is it crimson? Is it stagnation, purple? Now you want to look at the coating, as we know that the normal tongue coating is meant to be moist and clear. This tongue has kind of a stickiness to it. It looks a bit sticky. And it's not that, it's sort of a dried out stickiness almost. You can see there's cracks forming as well. So we want to look at these qualities. Is the tongue coating transparent? Is it white? Is it yellow? Is it dry? Is it wet? Is it sticky? And you've got a note here. What did you just eat? If you ate a bunch of turmeric, you're going to get a yellow tongue. Same with coffee, different foods, so and different medications. So someone with a white sticky coating on their tongue often will be consuming pharmaceutical medications, because a lot of the pharmaceutical medications will cause an internal dampness condition in the body. So that's something to note. This guy, you can see it's, yeah, very bright yellow. So it's probably something he's eaten, and then putting it in the context of the rest of his tongue, you're going to be like, oh, there's a furriness here, but all that's peeled off. So that's his liver, lung, heart zones. So liver is all about toxins. There's heat present because it's very red. There's little red points, so it's showing that there's some kind of heat coming from depletion, and there's all these teeth marks as well. So I'll show you some more. So yeah, in his case, it's probably something he ate, because looking at his tongue, he's not probably eating the best diet because he's got all this heat rising up, and there's a bit of liver heat as well. So he might be from medication, or it might be from diet. So also, when you put out your tongue, you want to look at how it moves and how strong the muscle is. So as I said before, like when you put out your tongue, some people go, like, you know, like when you shake someone's hand and it's very like certain, and then you shake another person's hand and they're like, you know, it's kind of like that with the tongue. So when you stick out your tongue, and some people overproduce the sticking out, and they'll go, and the whole face will contract. So, you know, really want to do a good job or something. So you got to just go, like you're getting the tongue depressor at the doctor. You don't want to force it, but you don't want to hide it. So what are you looking at? You're looking at the movement and the strength, and also in the movement, is it off to one side, which we call deviated. You want it in the middle. So chi depletion tongue, it's going to be a little bit shaky, and it's hard for them to hold it with strength. It's like a tired muscle. A yang depletion movement will be flaccid with no life, no muscle, no firepower. So it's just going to be like a limp biscuit. Deviated tongue, which is maybe like they stick it out and it's just can't control it. It's just going off in a different direction. That's often showing us that there's wind in the body, like that flag that suddenly went stiff. That is a symptom of that, which in Ayurveda we can relate to the dosha of Vata, which relates to the liver, and it can be seen in, you know, people with stroke, because they've had this uprising of wind, and then it's made the body stiff and stay in one position. See that in the tongue. And strong and pointy tongue. It could be the constitution. So I'm bringing a bit of Ayurvedic stuff into this, which is a fire quality, a Pitta. So the Pitta type of constitution body, they're quite pointy. They've got pointy teeth, pointy eyes, pointy tongue. So it could be the constitution, or it could be that they're like really contracting the muscle too strongly, which shows that there's a bit of a body tension or some excess. I did that with my tongue. I've done that before, touching the nose. So here's some comparative tongues. Blood deficiency, chi deficiency, yang deficiency. Normal. Yin deficiency, dampness plus heat. Chi stagnation, blood stasis, and too much heat. So when there's a blood deficiency, because blood is red, blood colors the muscle to be red. When there's a lack of blood, there's a lack of red. And there's going to be dryness too, because there's moisture lacking. Chi deficiency, you can get these wiggly lines here. I think I would suggest in that picture it's probably indicating the trembling. And then the yang deficiency tongue, it's really pale, and they've got this kind of second coating on there, which is probably suggesting that there's much water. The fire's gone down, the yin's taken over. Yin is water, water's gone everywhere, cooling the tongue down, making it pale. Here's a normal tongue, and then here's a yin deficiency tongue. So the body color's gone red, and these are cracks. So as the heat dries out the fluids, the body will start cracking. So you're going to see cracks. And also to note on that, when you see tongue cracks on your tongue, you can also look at where they are in relationship to the internal organs. So this person right here has what we call a stomach crack. The crack doesn't reach up to the tip, which is where the heart is. It's just in the digestive organs. So that person, when we look at the tongue, we'd be like, we need to investigate how is the digestion. And then there's many other cracks happening, which is suggesting just an all over middle jiao, middle dantian digestive organ deficiency. And because there's heat present, because it's a lack of moisture, we know that we're going to have to raise the yin back to equilibrium to balance the yang that's taken over. So it's not a case that we want to reduce the heat, because the yin's already gone down. If we reduce the heat to match the yin, we've just come away from equilibrium. So the yin's down, so we want to have moistening herbs and diet advice that will bring up the production of the yin, and then also avoid things that will dry the yin out, like chili, coffee, alcohol, processed food, medications. Damp retention, you can see here that this tongue is fat. So a fat tongue means that there's water accumulated and it's not moving. So in the body, you see that as edema or bloating, bloating that's kind of a watery sort of movement, flabbiness to it. And the tongue will show that, because the tongue is essentially swelled up with too much water. It's too big for the mouth. And in a damp tongue, you'll often get teeth marks coming around here. And it's basically because the tongue has gone too fat for the mouth, and then the teeth will indent themselves into the tongue. When you stick out the tongue, you can see those indentations. So obviously with damp, it's fluid accumulation, so there will be some fluid accumulation on the tongue, but it will probably be sticky, because dampness is essentially toxins accumulating. So anything that's got a sticky nature, it's kind of like unclean fluid. And then damp heat is when there's dampness, but there's also heat in the body, and that's going to start cooking up all of the fluids and turning them yellow. So it's not yellow from turmeric, it's yellow from the internal body heat condition. And then this tongue is also red at the same time. So in that case, you'll want to clear out the damp, clear the lymphatic, avoid the foods and drinks that are causing the toxins, and you want to reduce the heat. And then the chi stagnation tongue, when we first started talking about this, you see the red tip, and that's just basically something stagnated here and it's blocking the circulation, and then the heat's getting stuck up the top. And then the blood stasis tongue, there's little purple dots. They can sometimes be black, and you want to really notice where they are location-wise in comparison with the organs, because that can often indicate some blood stagnation in the organ, which can be showing that there might be something cancerous or tumorous, or something that needs to be inspected and shifted. I remember years ago my cat actually had little ones on the kidneys that looked like kidneys, and it's like a black stain, and the tongue is more purplish looking. It could be purplish or purplishy bluish. It's purplishy bluish. It's got a presence of cold and stagnation, and yeah, whenever you see that blood stasis purple stuff, you just want to think about, like, there's an internal bruise. It needs to be pulled out of the body. It can't escape on its own. And then a very, very red tongue is just too much heat. So I'm going to keep doing examples just so takes a while to get. So chi stagnation tongue. This tongue's got an aspect of dampness to it, because you can see a little bit of indentations, but the tongue's just a little bit pale. And the red in the upper is that chi stagnation, heat rising kind of symptom. But the tongue's got moisture, it's got a pretty good colour, just a little bit of heat in the upper, a little bit of swelling, showing that there might be some digestive problems, which could be the reason for the stagnation and then the heat rising up. So chi depletion, the tongue will be pale, but it still has the transparent coating retaining the fluid. The scalloped edge, which is those teeth marks, indicates spleen deficiency. So it could just be the energy of the spleen. It's not a yin or a yang problem. But pretty much anytime you see teeth marks going around, you think dampness and you think digestive. And then this tongue, it's pale. And yeah, there's a bit of redness in the top, same with the teeth marks. So blood depletion, it's pale and it's dry. So this one, you can also see this is a little bit deviated. So then you can also, you want to inspect the face. This face looks like the face of someone in their older years, and you can see that the mouth is not symmetrical. So this person might have suffered some kind of wind, external wind problem or an internal wind problem, making kind of a paralysis. And this mouth, it looks pretty symmetrical. It's obviously a man. Lips, you can see I've got some kind of blackness happening. So there's definitely some things to investigate there. And the lips on both people, they look quite dry. There's a lot of dryness happening. Dryness plus a bit of stagnation. So blood stagnation, as I was talking about before, those little black or purple marks, this person's got blood stagnation on their liver, spleen, gallbladder section. As you think about the body sections, in the upper you've got the heart and the lungs, the middle you've got the stomach, spleen, liver, gallbladder, top of the intestines, and then in the lower you've got the lower part of the intestines, reproductive organs, and bladder, and then on that midline between the middle and the lower you've got the kidneys. So this person, it would be a good idea to investigate his liver or spleen gallbladder condition, the blockage of blood there. And this is a darker colour, indicating that there's a stagnation of blood, quite a strong stagnation of blood. So this is yang depletion in the extreme. This is yang depletion on a more milder level. So it's a lack of fire. So there's paleness, whiteness, wetness, and flaccidness. It's hard to get exact matches for the clinical descriptions, because obviously this tongue does look pretty flaccid. So yeah, that tongue there, it's a little bit limp, it's pale, it does look a little bit wet. It's hard to tell with photographs. And then this person, obviously they've got cyanosis, so there's blueness happening on the lips and the tongue, which indicates extreme cold, which then leads to potentially dying. That's a very serious condition if you ever see that. Yin depletion. These are pretty extreme ones. So this tongue, you can see all of these cracks happening. So this is when there's been and it's red, been a long-term deficiency of moisture and coolness, and that has started cracking. All of the heat that's present has started cracking everything. And then, so that could be, due to something like radiotherapy or chemotherapy and medication, because all of those kind of treatments do produce a lot of heat in the body. but it's also depleting you cellularly. So it's not an excess heat condition. It's like your immune system and everything is going down, and then you're getting the cooking aspect of the medications or whatever is actually causing further depletion. It's not an excess condition. This tongue here, you can see there's like strawberry dots. That's what we call yin deficiency heat. So it's, I mean, yeah, this tongue could be considered full heat as well, actually. I'm a little bit wrong on that. But it's a long-term deficiency. So how do we differentiate what I just said? If you've got full heat, excess yang happening all of the time, you're going to get redness, fastness, hotness, dryness, all of that kind of stuff. But that can only happen for a certain time period before there'll be essentially like a polarity switch, because you just can't be excess all the time, you just can't be excess all the time because you're going to exhaust yourself. So when that point of exhaustion hits, there will be this polarity switch from an excess condition into a depletion condition, and that is probably what I'm trying to explain about this tongue. And then this one down below, you can see that there's a rooted quality of the coating, like it's stuck in the fur. So that's maybe not necessarily something they ate, but maybe that is because they've got heat in that part of their body. And that part of their body looks like their lower intestines. So it could be because of something they've been eating. If it was a little bit lower down, it would be like a urinary tract infection. And we know from these strawberry dots that those indicate yin deficiency. So the heat is there because there's not enough moisture. So in that kind of case, we want to increase the moisture. We don't necessarily want to take away the heat, because they've already got their moisture taken away, and if you take away the heat, then there's nothing left. So you want to build it up. Healed areas. Yay. So here's the tongue, here's the organs. Where are the peeled areas and which organs are they relating to? Here's the biggest one. It's the stomach. What are you eating? Cracks all around the liver and gallbladder, spleen. So it's definitely a digestive situation. It's not really. It's a midline. It is a little bit cracked on the midline. So that's showing that there's a problem there. Not really reaching up to the heart level. And then this area up here, it's almost like ulcery, and that's in the lungs. So all of that, and there's a little bit of a purpleness to it, all of that sort of peeled, heated up area, it's heating up the upper as well. So it's cooking the lungs. And you can see on his teeth, they're yellow, so he's probably a smoker. And then that's creating this the slightly purple stagnation plus heat tongue, and whatever's happening in the liver, gallbladder. Yeah, it's a case of consumption. What is that person eating? And then this is the dampness and teeth marks tongue. So dampness, because the tongue is quite fat, it almost looks like it's too big for the person's mouth. I mean, that person, it's like a female. It's just, yeah, it's almost too big. And it's got a little bit of moisture on it and a little bit of yellowness at the back. And then there's these little tiny cracks, and they're transverse cracks, which means they're going horizontally, not downways. And we call those spleen cracks. So if you see transverse cracks in your tongue, always think spleen and digestion and dampness. And so the teeth marks are there because the tongue is too big for the mouth and the teeth are indenting that. And this kind of lack of spleen qi leads to undigested food accumulating as toxins, which blocks up the lymphatic system and makes a damp kind of situation. So here's a tongue collection. So so there's a bit of qi stagnation happening there because the tip's a bit red, but the rest of the tongue looks mostly normal, but it's actually quite a strong, healthy tongue. It's just got a bit of heat in the upper. This one, under the body, it does look a bit red. The tip's a little bit red, but there's also this thick coating. So that could indicate there's a bit of dampness happening there. That's very, 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 very red. That's heat. There's heat here, and there's a really thick, sticky coating. So that's a very big accumulation of damp fluids, plus it's yellow, so there's some heat present, and that's shown in the redness of the tongue as well. This tongue, that's very stained, so that's probably some kind of medication that they're taking. Maybe even iodine. This is very peeled. That's up in the kidney, that's in the intestines. Lots of heat happening there, and it's excess because the tongue looks even like it's quite fat. This is more of a depletion heat tongue because it's sunken and hollow, and there's cracks. And there's heat very much in the tip, so there's something going on with the heart. There's some purplish quality too, so there's a bit of stagnation of blood, so that would be something I would definitely take seriously. And this tongue, it's got probably a normal coloured body, but the coating is very white, but the body's normal, so that's probably like a qi depletion type tongue. This one again, blood stagnation all over the tongue. That's probably you'd want to investigate that seriously. And then this tongue, that's like a yin deficiency tongue with dampness. That's a red body, it's got the strawberry marks, but there's a big coating and it's sticky and thick. It's a dampness. It does potentially look yellow depending on the light. So that's yin deficiency, so that's not because there's too much heat, because there's not enough moisture, and there's dampness, so that's involving the digestive system. So this tongue looks quite healthy, apart from a few yin depletion marks around the lungs and the heart. So there's heat rising in the body, so it's probably more of a qi stagnation type of tongue. I presented this in a workshop, and we did do that. It was very fun. And so this is a tongue scraper, so I use this every morning. And before you scrape off the armor, the toxins, you want to inspect your tongue, and then you scrape this off and you spit it out, because you don't want to swallow that. So this is basically just a review. When you look at your tongue in the morning, is the best time after you scrape it. Is it a qi depletion, a qi stagnation, a blood depletion, a yin depletion, a yang depletion, a blood stagnation, their teeth marks? So you want to inspect where the toxins have accumulated, scrape them off, and then you want to inspect the body color, the body shape, the coating, are there teeth marks or cracks, is there movement, are there patches, peeled areas, cracks? And then you can know a little bit more about your internal landscape. Famous tongue. So that's basically just another tool to start being able to categorize different tongue qualities. So it takes a lot of practice, but it's worth doing. You can tell just by someone's tongue. You need to stop eating whatever, or you're cold, you need to take the cold out of your body, or you've got a lot of heat in your body, you should stop eating chili so much. So that's the end of that one. Thank you for watching. I'm going to keep presenting these, got a few already created. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can go to my website, go to the contacts page. And if you want to check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, I am Anaya Science Witch. So that's the end of tongue reading. I hope it made sense. It's a bit kind of a lot of theory to get through to even be able to do the readings, but I'll just keep making these, and then the information will just get layered and layered upon itself. So yeah, have a good day. Bye.